Yeah.
Hey yo, man, it's your time. Man, fuck poverty. Get this money, man. What the fuck you gotta do, you know what I'm saying?
I can tell you're mad at me just by how your face looks.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Phil and Leroy, the Judgmental Podcast.
What's up, everybody? This is Phil back in here.
And this is Leroy. So what's going on, Phil?
Nothing much, just chilling. What's been up with you?
Same old. The same thing. What happened yesterday? The same thing happened yesterday. The same thing happening today.
We got some old school NBA Jam on yesterday.
Yep, and I beat him, Gary. I know you played NBA Jam back in the day.
Yes, indeed. You know what's funny is my son just not too long ago brought it up to me and asked me if I had ever heard about it. He's in college now, but I guess they're getting into it. And the Knicks with Patrick Ewing leading the way was always my go-to team.
So, now they have these hacks, is where they'll take an old game and put like updated rosters on it. So Phil has a NBA Jam 2K17 with the 2017 roster on there. So I had Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, and he had LeBron James and who was it?
Kyrie.
Yeah, Kyrie. And all I did is just shoot 3-pointers with Steph Curry.
And punch me on the ground so you can steal the ball.
And your ball probably always had the little fire trail going with it.
No, the game was always close into the fourth quarter, so none of us would have been on fire. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have Mr. Gary Schneider here. Now, Gary Schneider was on our Eagles versus Jets podcast way back in episode 83. We dismantled Philip in our baseball talk about Bryce Harper and MVP.
You didn't dismantle anything.
We destroyed him. And
right.
Gary suggested we do an MLB preview. So here we go. What was you gonna say?
I hate to say I told you so.
Yo.
No. I didn't say he wasn't going to win MVP. I just said I don't think he deserved MVP. like the whole season, he was playing good the whole season. So that's all you heard on ESPN and sports networks and stuff today. He was going to win MVP. I just think, in my opinion, he didn't deserve the MVP.
And because of the last couple of games.
Well, because we were fighting for a playoff spot, and he pretty much disappeared the last series.
So, MVP, you have to
make the playoffs, yes, in my book.
Okay, all right.
And that goes across to any sport. You can't be MVP without your team making the playoffs. That's how it should be.
Okay.
Yeah, but you take him off this team, they don't win 70 games last year. If he's
okay, but it's still 70 games. It still got you nowhere. So take him off the team regardless. We're in the same spot, missing the playoffs.
But they wouldn't have been in the hunt for the playoffs.
Oh my goodness! And it's still the bottom line is you're either in the playoffs or you're not, and we wasn't in the playoffs. So
not to any of his fault though. You wouldn't even been sniffing the playoffs without him being around.
Well, that would be like saying LeBron James should be MVP because he's leading the league in scoring and putting up crazy numbers, and his team missing the playoffs. It don't work that way. He's not even in the conversation.
Well, he's not in the conversation because how often he's been hurt?
No. He's played enough games this year, and he's leading the league right now. Well, I think Giannis might have tied him last night, but he's leading the league in scoring. If they was in the playoff hunt right now, or they had one of the top records, they'd be talking about him as MVP. Right now, he's not even like in the top 5 or 6 as far as the MVP race. But his numbers say otherwise because he's shooting a real high percentage. He's leading the league in scoring. All his numbers is up, rebounding, and assists. Everything is up. He just can't get no wins, and they holding that against him.
Well, but that's the difference. Bryce had, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm not an NBA guy by any stretch of the imagination, but I mean, the Lakers aren't really sniffing the playoffs. Bryce had them on.
They are. Yes, they are.
No. They have a chance of getting that buy-in game, but they like 10th or 11th, right?
That's not the playoffs.
No. If you win the buy-in, you're in the playoffs. Right now, they're one game out of fighting for the last two spots for the playoffs. Because back when we were younger, the top 8 teams
I don't know.
All right, so what? Hold on. What I was saying is, like, right now, I think it's 4 teams battling for the last 2 playoff spots. So it's the same as where the Phillies was at. They was battling for that last playoff spot.
No, this is the buy-in, not playoff spot. That's
right.
Different.
No. Right. So if you get the buy-in, you're playing for the last 2 playoff spots. That's what it comes down to.
Correct. But they don't have the last playoff spot. That's the way you said it.
No, I'm saying they're fighting for a playoff spot.
They're fighting to get in the buy-in because Skip and Shannon always say buy-in, not playoffs.
Right, because the playoffs don't start till after the buy-in. But exactly. if you make the buy-in and you win, I think it's 1 game. It's not even a series. So you win your buy-in game, you're in the playoffs. Kind of like how the Phillies had a series. You win the series. If we'd won those last couple games, we'd have been in the playoffs. It's the same with the Lakers. If they win their last few games, they'll be in the playoffs.
They'll be in a buy-in. You keep saying playoffs, they're in a buy-in.
Because I'm saying they're 1 game from the buy-in spot. So if they win 1 game, they're in the buy-in. Then you have to win the buy-in.
All right, stop right there. They're the buy-in. You got it. You right. I'm not arguing with you. You keep saying playoffs. So they're not in the playoffs. They're fighting for to get in the buy-in. If they get in the buy-in, they're in the playoffs. But they're fighting for the buy-in, not the playoffs. You keep saying playoffs.
No. So what I'm saying, I said games. So if they can win, they're 1 game behind for the buy-in spot.
There you go. So now you can stop right there.
Right. I'm breaking it down for you. So if they're 1 game from the buy-in spot, once they get that position, there's only 4 games in the regular season left. So if they get that buy-in spot, then they're battling in the buy-in, and that's 2 games, I think, in the buy-in. So you might as well say if the Lakers win 3 games, they'll probably be in the playoffs. And the Phillies was on the same end. They was at the back end of the playoffs. If they win a few more games, we'd have been in. Mm-hmm. But let's move on.
Here's the thing about Bryce that you look at his numbers last year. He answered the bell outside of that 15 or 20 game stretch where he got hit in the face by a pitch early in the season. What was it? Late April, early May. The guy played every single day. So let's say, let's say he missed 15. Let's say he missed that caused him to miss 20 games. He played in 141 games last year. He played every single day after the All-Star break. That I know is a fact. The guy hit .309. He had 35 homers, 84 RBIs, an OPS of 1.04. What more do you want him to do?
Right. So okay. So across the board, his numbers look good. But this is like what's the guy that just got cut from his team or traded or whatever? Our old boy in the NFL. Quarterback.
Carson Wentz.
If you look just strictly at his numbers, you would think he had a good season.
True.
We're down the stretch, those last few games, he stunk up the joint and missed the play.
Sir,
I'm not going to compare Bryce going 0 for 3 in Atlanta at the end of the season to Carson Wentz crapping the bed in a game against Jacksonville.
That's not the same.
You're talking about just 0 for 3, but I'm talking about his last 6 games. He got like 5 hits and 6 strikeouts.
That's unfair.
This is when we needed to win. Oh, no,
that's
goodness.
not right.
Yeah, but,
you say it's not right, but it's the facts.
But then we have to go back and pull up the box score of those 3 games. Who pitched? What did the pitching do? What did the bullpen do? Because we know that was a problem all year.
What I'm saying is look at his numbers in the last 6 games where we were trying to fight for a win, and he had some shitty numbers. That's like Embiid. Embiid was the favorite for MVP in the NBA all year. But then he had his last few bad games, and we're not even talking about Embiid no more in the MVP race.
Who was that? They've been talking about Embiid in
the
MVP
not no more,
race.
Not no more. No, they ain't. They talking about Giannis, they talking about Jokic, and they talking about Booker is the top. I just watched ESPN this morning, and Embiid was all the talk all year.
Yeah, last week he was the talk of the MVP.
And then we went on a 3-game losing streak, and now they're not talking about him.
But he had good games in one of those. That 3 losing streak. He had a good game in one of those.
Right. So I said the last 6 games. In the last 6 games, he had one good game, but he had like a total of 5 hits, and I think 3 of those hits was in one game in his last 6. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No,
Gary want to start talking about pitching and all that. I'm just talking about what he did in the last games. I ain't worried about what the pitching did.
What was the record that he broke? Wasn't he like the first right fielder to have those stats? The second one in like 30 or 40 years or something like that. I'm not sure.
Right, but you're talking about the total number of stats. I'm talking about how the season ended last year.
Yeah, but the season's not the season. While the season came down based off the schedule to 3 games in Atlanta, you got to look at the 162. That's why I hate to sound all cliche and go cliche on you.
That's why I said the last 6 games, because I said okay, Atlanta and the series before Atlanta. He didn't really do much in those last 6 games. That's even more than just Atlanta series. But yeah, Gary, can you name? Because I couldn't think of one. Can you name another MVP team didn't make the playoffs?
Well, I mean, I can go back as far as Andre Dawson when he was on the Cubs. The Cubs were a last place team, and Andre Dawson I think it was 1987, and I'd probably show my age here. He hit 47 or 48 home runs for a last place team. And I
guess good. That's good enough. You proved my point.
No, you didn't, because you said name one, and he named one.
Oh, okay.
So and
damn early.
And I'm sure that I'm sure there have been others more recently. The nice thing about baseball, you get to the MVP in the NFL, and it's always going to be a quarterback there. Anyone can win it in baseball. Whether it's, go back to a guy like and again, I'm going back far, but, the old Willie Hernandez when he won it, or I know there was another reliever even more recently that won the MVP, one of the closers.
I just think there's no way possible you can be the most valuable player in a league when you don't even get your team to a playoffs. There's other guys that have numbers like yours or better numbers that's in the playoffs. So I believe those guys should have the MVP.
Well, pause. Okay, but pause. Wait a minute.
One of the things we didn't mention is, who finished second to Bryce, don't you?
Was it the shortstop?
No, it was Juan Soto, and they were even worse.
Wait a minute. Ohtani, wasn't he the American League MVP?
Yes.
And they were had a losing record. So there you go, Phil. They had a losing record last year.
A lot of people get confused because the award's misnamed. It shouldn't be quote unquote most valuable player. It should just be the best player. It's the best player award. Whether you look at numbers, I mean, of course you would. I think the way it should be looked at is, what if this guy wasn't on your team? How much worse would you have been? Almost, I almost look at it that way.
Right.
But
well, go ahead, Phil. You got.
No, because it's a moot point. We'll never agree to this, because you say, like, let's take it to a different sport, like LeBron.
No.
You can't really compare sports.
No, sir.
What I'm saying
because
is,
I just told you that
Ohtani
won MVP for the American League, and they had a losing record.
And I believe second place in the American League also didn't make the playoffs.
Okay,
which was Guerrero.
And like I said before, I didn't say Bryce wasn't going to win. I say, in my opinion, I don't think a losing team should have an MVP player on their team.
But they didn't lose.
But look at
they had a winning record.
Look at everyone. I mean,
playoffs. That's losing to me.
But you weren't going to give it to anyone on the Braves last year. You weren't going to give it to anyone on the Dodgers last year. off the top of my head, I don't. Listen, the Braves basically brought their whole team in after the All-Star break. Their best player didn't happen at bat after July 15th or whatever day he got hurt, and they still won the World Series. Maybe, and I don't have his numbers in front of me. You want to make a case for Freddie Freeman? He might be your best bet.
No, I'm not saying Bryce didn't have a good year. He had a great year compared to his other year, because I've been on Bryce a little hard since he got here because he got a lot of money and he wasn't living up to it. So last year he was living up to it. He put up some big numbers. So I didn't fuss at him about the season that he had. I was just mad down the stretch those last 6 games where he disappeared. So I think those last 6 games in any other sport would have made him lose MVP race.
Let me ask you, before we get into looking ahead to this season, let me ask you one more question, which I always think is interesting. It's also looking ahead. Bryce signed a 13-year deal. He's 3 years into it now. Let's just assume he plays he spends all 13 years in Philadelphia. Does he get ranked as one of the top 5 players in any sport ever to play in this city?
No, because you got to win a championship. You have to win a championship to be in that consideration.
Okay, so let's say he wins one.
I think he would if he finish out his contract here. Yeah, and even if you don't win the championship, I think he would be considered one of the good players here. But you have to make the playoffs at least. It be a fighting chance. You can't just be missing playoffs year after year and people going to recognize you as being some great player because you got the numbers. It don't work like that.
I agree. It's not. It's definitely not a longevity and a, just a compilation of the numbers. You have to do something. But if he has them in it every year, and just by the grit that he brings to the field every day, and you can write that Girardi or whoever is going to be the manager moving forward can write his name in the lineup every day for 162 days, that means something to me.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. But making the playoffs is a big thing for me. And when your team can't make the playoffs, I just can't look at somebody on that team and say he's the most valuable player in the league or the best player in the league. Because the best player, you could at least make the playoffs.
I totally hear what you're saying. I think last year was a little bit of an aberration because, there wasn't anyone who, like Ohtani in the American League and the National League, who just was head and shoulders above the rest. And I think those intangibles that Bryce Harper brought to this team, while he didn't will them to the playoffs at the end, and let's not forget, the Braves did go on to win the World Series. Take that for what it's worth. I think they're obviously in a better place with Bryce being here than not.
No, I agree with that. And like I said, think before last year, the 2 years before that, he was batting under 300. They were just okay years, but they wasn't the type of MVP years that we expected out of him. So if he had that type of year last year, I would be on him even more because the money that he's making, the expectations, it wasn't there until last year.
I think by the time this 13-year deal is done, Bryce Harper's deal is going to end up looking like a bargain, and it might, based on what we've already seen over the last, even this last offseason and the one beforehand, the two guys that the Rangers signed, the one from the Dodgers and the other, look at these contracts around the league. Bryce's is going to end up being, a very, very fair deal when it's all said and done.
Mm-hmm. So Bryce Harper got 13 years, $330 million. What did Mahomes get? Was it 10 years, 500? If I'm not mistaken, or is it more than 10 years?
Yeah, it's hard to compare the sports, though. I mean, look at. Sorry about my dog.
That's all right. Well, before we go any further, let me ask Gary, how's everything? How's the family?
Everything's good, the kids The kids are finishing up their semesters. My daughter's a junior in college. My son's finishes his freshman year, so we're looking forward to having them back home over the summer. And it's all good. We've got our tickets for some ball games already this coming up. So we're looking forward to it. The kids are doing good. My wife and I are doing good. Dog's a pain in the ass, but he's good. And we made it through the winter is what I like to say.
Mm-hmm. Now, before we go anything further, let's talk about the new rules they have this year. We have the universal designated hitter, which means the National League has a designated hitter now. That's what Philip always would talk about. We should have kept Jim Thome, and it had Jim Thome and the DH, and yeah. Now we got the
Thome could you put a uniform on him, he could probably still hit.
Yeah, as long as he ain't got to run a field or anything, he's good for
Right.
smacking that ball around.
I know they probably sitting, those old guys probably sitting like, damn, if they had DH back in the day, I'd probably still be playing.
No doubt. No doubt.
So we got a automatic runner starting on second base in the extra innings. They had that last year as a trial. I don't know, is that permanent or is it still a trial for this year? I'm not sure.
I think it's just it was agreed to after the lockout. It wasn't one of those issues like the DH that is in the agreement for the rest of time or for the rest of this contract. I think this was one of those things because of the lockout, they don't want these pitchers being taxed. And quite honestly, I don't think Major League Baseball thinks there's a whole lot of value for these games going 15, 16, 17 innings.
Right.
So I don't mind it. The runner on second base, it's a little gimmicky.
Yes.
One of the things I think is the most ridiculous things, I watched, there was that college football game in the fall where they put the ball on the 2-yard line and the teams, I think Penn State was involved, and they just went back and forth trying to get the ball in from the 2-yard line. Like, to me, that's not football. Like,
no.
At least you put a runner on second base, you're still playing baseball. But football is not a game where it's decided at the 2-yard line and in. So that's just, if you're going to do that, you might as well just call the game a tie. I don't have a problem. Obviously one of the biggest things in Major League Baseball is also the length of the game. And I don't think no one wants to see a game go 5 hours. So I think that's part of it also.
Right. Like I was going to say, it's like almost like a video game rule. It's like a video. That's just there just so, like you said, the games won't be 15, 16 innings.
Right.
Because one mistake, the runner's going to score.
Exactly. And I'm surprised by watching the games over the last year or two, however long it's been that we've been doing this. I thought when you got to the 10th inning, you would see a lot more bunting to get that guy over to third base with 1 out. And
right.
There are so many more ways he could, then a sacrifice fly conceivably ends the game. But you don't see a whole lot of that, of trying to manufacture that run. You still see the game, being played for the long ball.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, bases changed from 15 square inches to 18 square inches. Is that this year or next year?
I heard the only thing I heard about that was that they were squaring off second base in the minor leagues, which made it, I don't know, a foot or a little bit less distance in between the bases, because rather it be on that angle, they're going to square it off. And I think this whole thing with the bases becomes more of an injury, making the bases bigger avoids injury. Right. And I think it's a good idea to have the 2 first bases. You've seen it in Little League. I know men's leagues play with that, where the fielder has their own base and the runner has their own base. I think that's a good idea, actually.
Right.
As far as a first base.
And we have a pitch clock to speed up the game. Pitchers will have 14 seconds to send the ball to the plate with no runners on base and 19 seconds to pitch with the runners on base. That's still not going to speed up the game by doing that. The game,
It'll help a little bit.
yeah, it'll help. You're right.
I saw a clip. I saw a clip just yesterday that John Boy posted. It was, I think it might have been a college baseball clip where he put the stop. They called the guy. They called the guy out in college for not being ready after 20 seconds. He went through all of his theatrics of playing with his batting gloves and playing with the belt buckle and swinging the bat and whatever.
Like, oh my goodness!
And then he finally stepped in the box. The catcher pointed to the clock, and the umpire goes, I guess the penalty is a strike, and it was 2-2 or 3-2. So they struck the guy out, and the pitcher didn't even have to throw a pitch because he wasn't in the box ready to receive a pitch after 20 seconds. I think it was. I don't see how that's going to be enforced in the majors. I just don't.
No. So
I think it would help a lot. Like you say, I was just gonna say, just to touch on what we were saying, get the batters up there quicker and get the pitchers throwing that ball quicker, because that's the only problem a lot of people have with baseball is just the slow theatrics of everything.
Yeah, and have you guys seen what some of these teams are doing in spring training with the catcher wearing some sort of electronic wristband?
I heard about it. What was it?
So I guess some of these catchers are wearing an electronic type of wristbands, and the pitcher has a receive. I'm not sure if it's a receive, like if it's an earbud or something. The pitcher is receiving something in his hat or in his ear, and he's either saying yes or no to the pitch, and maybe I don't know if it's a two-way electronic thing where the pitcher's hearing or getting a tone in his ear about the pitch or whatever, but I know they're trying it, and it's worked to different degrees. I heard in one game recently, I read on The Athletic that it had to be scrapped because the technology wasn't working, but where it has worked, it's the players involved have said it definitely is interesting and they'd be willing to try it long term.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think that would speed up the game. I think a lot more of the issue is the pitcher stepping off and getting distracted by the runner on first and shaking off the catcher, not the pitcher and the catcher not being on the same page. I think that's a worse problem than the theatrics that some of these guys pull getting ready in the batter's box.
Right. So last year, the 2021 Phillies record was shout out to Phillip. It was 82-80, and shout out to Phillip again. They was in second place.
Okay, so if you want to talk about that, I just pulled this up for you, so we can talk about what I was saying about the last. I said the last 6 games, but who was last 5? We of course we lost the 4 out of the last 5 games. Bryce Harper had, here you go, right here. In the last 5 games, he had 5 hits, but 3 of those hits came in one game. 1 homer and struck out 8 times. Like, you've been up to bat 18 times, and you got 5 hits, and 3 of them came in one game. Those other games, he got 0 hits, 0 hit, 1 hit, 1 hit. Like, if you look at those numbers, you'd have never thought somebody won MVP finishing out the season like that. I was going to leave it alone, but you want to go back to this.
I have a hard time just boiling it down. I'll ask you the next question. Were they in any of the games? Like, what was the score of the games? Because I don't remember.
It was close. They lost 5-4, 3-1, 5. They won 5-0. They lost 5-3 to Atlanta, and they lost 7-2 to Atlanta. So really, one game they was really out.
And at some point, the last 2 games were irrelevant.
Right, but still, like the
5-3 game, the 3-1 game. Okay, yeah, it sounds like they pitch, and I don't remember the games off the top of my head, but yeah, they pitched decently, and something here or something there.
They must have pitched decently 4 of the 5 games because one hit, 0 hit, 0 hit. It's not MVP caliber numbers, man.
You basing that off of 5 games though?
Well, I told you I looked at the last 6, but the reason why I'm talking about the last is because we was fighting for that playoff spot.
Yeah,
so
but
we needed to win, and that's where he disappeared.
Those games in the middle of June and July are just as important at the end of the day. That you can easily say, let's go back to a July game against Milwaukee, for example, or whoever that the bullpen blew or whatever.
At the end, because at the end, when you got to get a win and you're fighting for the last spot, you can't afford to lose games like that, especially when you're looking for your MVP to play like a half-decent player, not a bum.
But the bigger issue is how many games did the bullpen blow over the course of the year? Give me 3 of those games. Give me 3 of those games back, or something along those lines.
Down the stretch. If your team gave up 5 runs, your offense only scored 4 points. You can't blame the bullpen for that. They lost a game 3-1. Like, what the hell is that? Like, where's the hitting at? 5-3. Like, you can't blame the bullpen when your batters are not putting points on the board.
No, but if the bullpen, and I mean, if let's just use 20 as a round number because it's probably close of games that the bullpen blew throughout the season. How about you win 8 of those? That's not even half.
Uh-huh. We'll get into the bullpen again, but yeah, he's right. Well, he's right about the bullpen thing, Phil.
No, I know that.
You can't boil a 162 game season down to the last 4.
See, now he said 5, you said 4, I said 6, but y'all want to minimize my number even more.
Okay.
Because at some point when they lost 2 out of 3 or got swept in Atlanta, the next series basically didn't mean anything.
Well, if it ain't me,
they played Atlanta and then they played somebody else, if I remember correctly. They probably ended in Florida.
Yeah, Miami.
So once they got to Miami, those games were rendered meaningless. I can't remember if they lost 2 out of 3 or got swept by the Braves.
I think they got swept by the Braves. The stats I'm looking at only has the 2 games against Atlanta, but I think it was 3, and I think they lost all 3.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean. Like, down the stretch when you're fighting for that playoff spot, this is where you need your best players to step forward, and he did.
Yeah, I just can't buy into that theory. I say
it's
that's
not a
why
theory
they play.
When you look at the numbers.
But that's why they play 162 of them.
Right, but he disappeared when you needed the most.
But Philip,
a game that they had a 7-4 lead in August that maybe they blew is just as big, if not bigger, than
those last games that you're talking about. Exactly. I agree. Right. Yes, it does.
Because earlier in the season, you still have a lot of time to make up for those bad losses that you took. At the end of the year, you don't have a lot of time.
But that's the point. You can't take those bad losses.
Yeah, that's right.
I agree with that. But if you do, you still have time to recover. At the end of the year, you don't have time to give away games.
Yeah, but that's your own fault at that. That's a team issue. That's their own fault. And they don't have time to give away games. But, Harper going 0-3 in a game against Atlanta in October, yes, it hurts, but it's not the reason they lost.
We never agree because you can't win. In my opinion, you shouldn't win MVP if you disappear when they needed you the most and your team missed the playoffs. That's just the bottom line.
Yeah,
and that's across any sport.
We're gonna go to the great disagree on how the 2021 season ended.
Yeah. Well,
all right.
PhillyVoice.com says this is the starting lineup. We got designated hitter Kyle Schwartzberger. I'm gonna mess up these names too, by the way, so forgive me. First base, you got Reese Hoskins. Second base, you got Gene Segura. Third base, you got Bryson Scott. Shortstop, you got Didi Janoris. I know I messed up his name. You got catcher JT Realmuto. Right fielder Bryce Harper, center field Matt Verling, and left fielder Nick Castellanos. Starting five pitchers is Zach Wheeler is number one, Aaron Nola is number two, Kyle Gibson, Ranger Suarez, and Zach Efron round up the starting pitchers. The bullpen, we got Corley Kinebell, Janoris Familiar, Brad Hand, Sigourney Dominguez, Jose Alvarado, James Norwood, Nick Nelson, Bailey Falder, and Nick Suarez, and Ryan Sheriff run up the bullpen. Now, I got this from this website is Sportsnot. They have the Phillies at hold on, let me where I'm at. They have the Phillies at 86 wins, 76 losses. It's the same thing that happened last year is what was going to happen this year. The bullpen is still horrible. They pumped up the offense a little bit by adding Kyle and Nick. So they did better with the offense, but the bullpen is still the same. And I agree with that this prediction that this website did that it's going to be close, just like that. 86 wins, 76 losses. They have the Mets.
So we're going to have a season like we did last year.
Pretty
down the
much
stretch fighting for a spot.
Yep, because they have the Mets the same record also. 86
so
wins.
Well, but the Mets season has definitely taken a hit over the last 3 days. You know
what happened?
Well, DeGrom is not going to pick up a baseball for the next 6 weeks.
Okay.
So that helps our cause. Scherzer looks like is going to miss the first 2 weeks of the season now. So now the Mets went from having two of the best pitchers in baseball to start with to having none in the first 2 weeks of the season. And, just Scherzer for the short term. Who knows about DeGrom now? So you never know what's going to happen there. I think for the Phillies, I was at the minute that last season ended, the first guy, anyone who asked me what the Phillies needed, my first answer was Nick Castellanos. I don't know how familiar you guys are with Castellanos.
No.
Not a lot, but this is the guy I'm looking forward to having a good year and getting us over the hump, kind of. You know what
they're gonna love this city if they're gonna love this guy. I went after the Phillies signed him. I went back and looked at his numbers. You want to talk about a workhorse? He broke his thumb either this year or this past year or the year before. Outside of that, this guy averages playing over 155 games a year. You probably heard the quote, and I think they made it into a T-shirt after his press conference where he says, "All I do is hit baseballs," and he hits them a long way, man. This city is going to love this guy. Now, the problem outside of the pitching for this group is going to be who the hell's going to catch the ball. The defense is going to be terrible.
Yes.
There's going to be a lot of 11-7 games between the defense and the bullpen. Strap yourself in for a lot of 11-7 games with a lot of unearned runs. Because Schwarber stinks in the field also. I like Schwarber.
He's the designated hitter.
Yeah, yes, he needs to be the designated hitter every day. I mean, him and Castellanos will split time in left field. Every once in a while, one of them will give Bryce a break, and you'll probably see them both in the outfield at the same time. So Bryce can get off his feet maybe once a week. But the outfield play is going to be awful. I would have preferred them to bring in a guy like Conforto to play center field before Schwarber, only because he's just a better outfielder. And I don't think they need, especially once they brought in Castellanos, I don't think they needed as much offense as both of the guys will give them. You know, the other thing is, and where do you guys, do you have a big opinion? Moniak's had a great spring. They pretty much handed the job to Verling in center field. I personally would like to see them give Mickey Moniak a good crack at winning the center field job for the whole season.
Well, it's like Philly sports. Every Phillies team is like this. We see what the problem is last year, and they do nothing to correct it for the upcoming season. Now, we knew the problem was the bullpen blowing big leads, as we just mentioned. They did nothing to improve that bullpen. The starting five is fine. No injuries, of course, and everything. Everyone's healthy. But the starting five is fine. It's the bullpen that always blow the big lead, but always blow leads.
Yeah, and when your big pickup in the bullpen is a guy, is this Corey Knebel, who's going to be your closer. There's no doubt about that. And he's coming off 2 years of injury. You just don't know.
Phillips' favorite, getting guys off injury.
Stop playing. Then damn well I don't like picking up no injured dudes.
And then I mean Familia, from the Mets, who had his problems there lately, it just seems like, to your point, they basically were collecting arms, and let's throw them in the bullpen and see. The first month they'll spend, almost like an on-the-job training tryout, and whoever does the best, that's who we're gonna count on.
Yep. And well, to round up the NFC East, this is still from the website sportsnot.com. We have the Atlanta Braves first. New York Mets and the Philadelphia Phillies are tied again at 86 and 76. Miami Marlins at 77-85, and Washington Nationals at 70 and 92. How do you feel about those predictions, Gary?
I'm not sure. Well, the Braves brought in the guy from Oakland to replace Freddie. I was shocked that they didn't bring Freddie Freeman back. I understand I think if the Braves would have offered him the contract length and the dollars, he would have chose to go back there rather than, quote unquote, go home to LA. But I was shocked that they decided to bring in this guy from Oakland rather than Freeman. Having said that, the Braves, outside of Acuna missing half the season, they'll get him back probably in May. The Braves are obviously still going to be formidable, but I think if you put the lineups next to each other, I'd rather have the 9 that the Phillies are going to put out there every day. And that might be crazy because the Braves will put Acuna out there and Albies and a lot of those guys. But over the long haul, I'm pretty sure I'd rather have Realmuto, Bryce, Schwarber, and Castellanos, and not to mention Rhys Hoskins. I think the Phillies. I think 86 is right around the number. I'm not sure the Braves are going to win 90.
Mm-hmm. So who do you think will be in first place?
Us.
Well, I haven't looked at the Braves pitching too closely yet. I think it's going to come down to the pitching, but I guess for the simple fact is the Braves are the world champions. You got to install them as the favorite right now here on April 3rd, and to be the man, you got to beat the man type of thing. So I think the Phillies are a playoff team this year, and if they're not. They're not, we're going to have a new voice in the dugout next year. This team doesn't go to the playoffs. Joe Girardi doesn't come back.
Mm-hmm. Do you mean he'll leave or they'll fire him?
Well, this is the end of his contract. So he signed this is his third season, And there was a lot of talk going into last season when Dombrowski took over of whether or not they were going to give him an extension. And Dombrowski basically said, you know, he's gonna manage that third season, and then we're gonna figure out where we are. Mm-hmm. Which to me means if you don't make the playoffs, you're not coming back.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, there's not too many sports. You know, you always hear that in the NFL where we're not going to let our head coach go into the lame duck year. We're either going to get rid of him or sign him to a new contract. Well, mm-hmm. Joe Girardi's in his lame duck year.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, staying in the National League, we're going to go to the NL Central predictions. We got Milwaukee Brewers at 89 and 73. St. Louis Cardinals, 85 wins, 77 losses. Chicago Cubs, 78 wins, 84 losses. Cincinnati Reds, 74 wins, 88 losses. And Pittsburgh Pirates at 65 wins and 97 losses. What's your thoughts on that, Gary?
I think Milwaukee's the team to beat there. I think the Reds have basically had a fire sale throughout the whole offseason, so you take them out of it. Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh outside of the 2 years when McCutchen was there about, 7-8 years ago when they went to the playoffs 2 years in a row. The Brewers are a well put together team. They have the best pitching in all of baseball. They have the best bullpen a top 3 bullpen in all of baseball. Fundamentally, they play the game well. They don't make a lot of errors. They're real well coached, well managed. The Brewers are the team there. The Cardinals, I don't like what they did to their manager at the end of the year. They fired their long-term manager who basically, willed them to the playoffs last year by, I think they won 19 games in a row down the stretch to get to the playoffs. And then they lost the wild card game, and the thank you is, hey, we don't see eye to eye, so you're going to have to find somewhere else to go. And this guy is a guy who was in their organization for over 30 years, and they gave the manager job to a kid who was his bench coach, but has no real experience outside of that for 2 years. And I just don't see how you can make that transition in the first year. So I'm not big on the Cardinals. And the Cubs, I think, are one of those teams that are just an average team. And, they won the World Series in 2016. They had that fire sale last year where they got rid of Baez and Schwarber and Bryant and Rizzo. So all the Cubs that everyone grew to love that won the World Series, they're all gone. They're a middle of the road team. They'll need something special to happen to do something. But the Cubs are one of those teams for the next little while who are probably, kind of right where the Phillies were a couple of years ago, as between, let's call it 78 and 82 wins. And that's not good enough to go to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. All right, staying again with the National League, we got the NL West. We got Los Angeles Dodgers, 97 wins, 65 losses. San Francisco Giants, 86 wins, 76 losses. San Diego Padres, 85 wins, 77 losses. Colorado Rockies, 76 wins, 86 losses. And Arizona Diamondbacks, 68 wins, 94 losses. What's your thoughts on that, Gary?
So let me ask you guys this question, because I had this conversation with some people here, and I don't listen to a whole lot of local talk radio anymore because it just drives me crazy.
Thank you for saying that.
But I didn't hear any. All people wanted to do, and I was probably one of them, was run Gabe Kapler out of town. So we run Gabe Kapler out of town. He lands in San Francisco, and he won 104 games last year. Where was the mea culpas? Where was the we were wrong? I can't believe we ran Gabe out of here. All of that stuff. Like, no, shouldn't. And Gabe took the high road, and he has no reason to say, I told you guys so to Philadelphia. He just doesn't. But this is the fact that they went head to head with the Dodgers and I think they beat them. I think they won the division. The Dodgers played in the wild card game, if I recall correctly, at the end of last year. The Dodgers beat them in the series that they played together. But we were so quick to run Gabe Kapler out of here, and then he goes to San Francisco, wins 106 games, and beats the mighty Dodgers for the division title.
It's funny you mentioned that because Phil and I was saying, I think this was before we did the podcast, that we were saying that they should have kept Gabe because his last year, were they 500?
Yes, 81 and 81.
Right. So now what do we have? They only won, 2 games? 82 and 80.
The next year was the 60-game season, so you basically throw that out anyway.
Right. And now they 82 and 80. So where do we go? So they should have kept him. We said the same thing.
I don't disagree. I definitely don't disagree. And he's built. I don't listen. A lot of things ended up going right for the Giants last year. They had guys with career years. You know who's playing? I had to look it up once I saw it last year. You remember Darren Ruff, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
He played here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he probably led. He was a regular on this Giant team last year, and I'm like, this can't be the same guy from 2015 or 16. And lo and behold, old Darren Ruff was leading the Giants in a whole bunch of categories last year and right to the playoffs. So I think last year was one of those years for that teams happen where, guys just happen to have career years all at the same time.
Right. And another thing about Gabe, Phil and I had that conversation about remember the little controversy where as though I guess one of the sports writers had was complaining about I don't know if it was the sports writers or maybe like upper management complained that the guys was playing video games in the locker room. I want to say it was Fortnite, right, Phil?
Yeah.
Yeah, they was playing Fortnite in the locker room, and they were saying because Gabe was real young, he didn't see anything wrong with it, and so Phil and I was saying, well, what's wrong with it? You can play video games all you want to as long as you win and you show up.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I don't care what you do.
Well, you know how Philly fans are. I think we took an L with James Harden, then he was at a birthday party. They dug in his ass about that. So they want him to be home crying for a loss, I guess.
But the Dodgers are by far and away the class of the NFC West and probably the class of the National League. I mean, just look at the team that they put together, and they're pitching with the names escape me right now. But Kershaw's back, and the two guys, Walker Buehler is a star. And now they brought in Kimbrel, who I don't like Kimbrel. I'm glad the Phillies didn't look at him as the closer. I think Kimbrel turns into Jonathan Papelbon if you bring him here. But, they brought in Kimbrel and just go across the diamond. I mean, they have almost an all-star at every position with Freeman and Muncy and Turner and Bellinger. Obviously Mookie Betts. So, the Dodgers, if you're a betting man, bet the over on the Dodgers on the wins. No matter what it's at. And it's probably in the high 90s, I would assume.
So we got some AL West, American League West predictions. We got the Houston Astros, 92 wins, 70 losses. Los Angeles Angels, 85 wins, 77 losses. Seattle Mariners, 83 wins, 79 losses. Texas Rangers, 76 wins, 86 losses. And Oakland Athletics, 70 wins and 92 losses. So what's your thoughts on that, Kerry?
My thoughts are bet the under on the A's. The A's are going to be terrible this year. They're going to be right there with the Pirates and the other team there in the Reds that we talked about. I think this is finally the year where it's gonna where you're going to see the Angels really take a step forward and be in this thing until the end. I think they're kind of reborn a little bit. Obviously, Trout missed basically 2/3 of the season last year, and that hurt. And Ohtani is Ohtani. I just think that these days in the American League West, the days of just penciling in the Astros to the playoffs are over. The Mariners, who a lot of people and most people here probably don't know, the Mariners have themselves a nice young team. And they were in it until the last weekend of the year last year. And they're fun to watch. That's one of those teams where if there's a game on MLB TV on the West Coast and and you need to watch a late game, watch the Mariners. They're fun to watch. They have a lot of good young players and pitchers. And I think it's a 3-team race. I think you wouldn't go wrong picking any of them. And now that Correa's not on the Astros anymore, Justin Verlander, who knows what you're going to get out of him when he comes back. I don't even know who else is in the Astros rotation. McCullers, but is he anything special anymore? So I wouldn't be so quick just to pencil the Astros in anymore. Altuve's a great player. Gurriel's decent. Alex Bregman's one of the players that I hate the most in all of baseball. I just don't like him. I don't like the way he plays the game. He mouths off, and he's one of those guys I just root against anytime I get.
We got the American League Central. We got Chicago White Sox, 87 wins, 75 losses. Minnesota Twins, 82 wins, 80 losses. Detroit Tigers, 78 wins, 84 losses. Cleveland Guardians also at 78 wins, 84 losses. And Kansas City Royals, 72 wins, 90 losses. What's your thoughts on those?
There's a couple of the White Sox are the class of the division apparently, and I don't watch a whole lot of American League Central baseball, but the White Sox are the class of that division. I do think that the Twins are a team worth watching after a down year last year. They brought in Correa, so we'll see what kind of difference that makes. Maybe Gary Sanchez can find find a way to make a difference there after the last few years he had with the Yankees. So I do think that the Twins will have something to say before it's all said and done. And I don't know a whole lot of guys on the Tigers, but I know they have a bunch of youngsters who they've built it up in the through the draft who are pretty much major league ready this year. So you're going to see a lot of these guys who the Tigers picked very high in the last 3 drafts, and I think they have a first baseman and an outfielder who've been told they're going to be starters this year. And now they bring in Javi Baez, who was on the Mets for the last half of the last year. So the Tigers, while they don't have a bunch of household names, I'm told they're a team to watch.
Mm-hmm. So we got the American League East. We got the Toronto Blue Jays, 92 wins, 70 losses. New York Yankees, 90 wins, 72 losses. Tampa Bay Rays, 89 wins, 73 losses. Boston Red Sox, I said Scots. Boston Red Sox at 86 wins, 72 losses, and Baltimore Orioles with the worst record in baseball with 60 wins and 102 losses. What's your thoughts?
This is going to be probably the best division in baseball, because the Rays are always there. They always find a way to win 90 games, and the Yankees and the Red Sox are what they are. The Yankees may not be as strong as they once were, but they're still the Yankees. And, with with Judge and I love I think Anthony Rizzo is great. I think they made a great trade to bring in Donaldson, who helps not only with the bat but at the glove. You know, Stanton, who knows what you're going to get out of Gallo. You know, the question with the Yankees is what are you going to get on the mound behind Garrett Cole? You know, but look up and down that Toronto Blue Jay roster. You know, Guerrero in a normal year last year would have been the American League MVP, if not for what Ohtani did with the bat and with his right arm. And you look up and down that Blue Jay lineup, it's a great combination of their young talent like Biggio and Guerrero and Bichette's kid, Dante Bichette's kid. His first name escapes me right now. Bo Bichette. You know, with some of the veterans they've brought in over both this offseason and last offseason, and their pitching is phenomenal as well. The Blue Jays are probably the team to beat there in the American League East with. I think you could probably pull out of a hat between the Red Sox, Yankees, and Rays how they finish. That's the way it seems to be every year. I would put the Rays and Yankees both ahead of the Red Sox right now. But I think any one of those three teams, I wouldn't be surprised to see 2 out of 3 of them in the playoffs come October. Out of the Yankee joining Toronto as the division winner, the Yankees, Red Sox, and Rays. How the Rays do it year after year, you know, by not spending a whole lot of money and being in it until the end. Give credit to their manager and their ownership that keeps them in it every year.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Ohtani, I don't think I mentioned about the new rule where you can keep the pitcher in the lineup when you take him out. The Ohtani rule.
Yep. The DH.
Yeah. So I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, I mean, it really only affects him, you know, but it's a way to keep the stars in the game, you know. So they get his bat and his arm in the lineup at the same time. You know, the Angels used to have a rule, you know, one of their things where Ohtani didn't play the day before he pitches. I think that's gone away. Right. I think he probably still is the DH the day before he pitches. If he's gonna hit when he pitches, he can hit the day before he pitches, right?
Right.
So, you know, there's probably not too many days that Joe Madden isn't able to write his name in the lineup. And I hope. Listen, a lot of us here in the area, you know, root for Mike Trout, and the guy's played in one playoff game in his 10 years in the league. It's time for Mike Trout to make a difference in the postseason.
Okay, who's going to the World Series this year?
Oh man, well, I just think you have to say the Dodgers. Mm-hmm. You know, I really do, and if I had to pick a team right now, and I'll go a little chalky on you because I didn't put a whole lot of thought into it right now, but I would probably pick the Dodgers in Toronto.
Okay.
Right now.
Phil,
what do you guys have?
Go ahead, Phil.
I don't know. I usually start picking up baseball towards the end. I'm not like Gary, like deep into it like that. So we could probably do an episode like halfway through the season, and we can kind of see. But I think the Phillies will win the division because I like our bats, even though the pitching is still kind of shitty. I think we can put some better points on the boards this year.
100%. Listen, I think the Phillies pitching is going to be okay. The starters are going to be okay. I think Nola. Listen, Wheeler was great last year. There's no reason to think without injury he doesn't do that again. I don't think they're going to let him pitch over 200 innings again this year. I think they're going to keep him on a shorter leash in a lot of these games. So I don't think you're going to see him out there in the 7th and 8th inning as much as you did last year, which could end up biting him in the ass. But I don't think they're going to let him pitch 200 innings again. I think Eflin's going to be decent this year.
Right.
So I think you got the three with Wheeler, Nola, and Eflin. You know, if Kyle Gibson goes 11-11, that's fine. You know, so I don't think the starting pitching is going to be the Phillies' issue. You hope the defense, the bullpen sorts itself out, and something's going to give with the Phillies. They're gonna make a big move somewhere. I've been saying for years. I've been saying for years, I'm not so sure Bryce Hoskins fits on this team for the long term. And if you can get a pitcher or a center fielder for him or something, which I think you can, now with even the additions of Schwarber and Castellanos and the fact that it's if you don't want to give up on Alec Boehm yet, he can play first base. He probably is not a big league third baseman. Something's going to have to give, and I think I've said it for years, and I still think Hoskins is your biggest trade chip here. I personally think we've seen the top of what Rhys Hoskins can do. He's a nice player, don't get me wrong, but I think you could flip him for something better that would help us win both now and in the long term. This offense won't lose a whole lot if Hoskins not in it. I don't think.
Right. Well, because I was looking at Nick's stats as soon as the Phillies got him. I was like, damn, his numbers are damn near identical to Bryce Harper, and Bryce Harper was the MVP.
He's amazing.
Year. So I was like, so now we're getting another MVP caliber, so we should be good on putting some points on the board.
Look at Castellanos' number not only last year, but going back through the years. They're unbelievable. Like I knew he was good. I didn't think he was that good. I mean, they're gonna love him here. He's gonna be one of these guys that's easy to like.
Mm-hmm.
And like Bryce, if Castellanos is crapping up the joint and is doing crappy, he'll be the first to tell you. He's not going to look for excuses.
The Philly fans will be the first to tell you.
Oh, absolutely. And he'll agree with them. He'll be right there with them going, you know what? You guys are right. I did suck you up last night. Or last week.
I just love those players that can bat over 300 and hit over 30 homers.
Yep.
Oh, no, so you was a Jose Canseco fan in his prime, huh?
I mean, he was a beast in his prime. I mean, I didn't follow Oakland like that, you know what I mean? But I know him and Mark McGwire was smacking them homers. So hey, you need those firepower offensive weapons on your team.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, but
my guy like that back in the day was Darryl Strawberry.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Are you guys looking for like? I mean, you know, I've been looking forward to the baseball season since January 1st, and the lockout crushed me. My son and I, who's 19, we're big baseball guys, and you know, we love the season, so I can't wait for it to get started.
Yeah, I just want to see what the Phillies are going to do. I'm just so worried about this bullpen. That's the only thing.
Yeah, I like I said earlier, I think the first month is gonna be that, you know, positioning for jobs, and then once they get into their roles, let's see who does it. And you know that the one thing about Dave Dombrowski is he's not going to be afraid to make a move come July.
Mm-hmm. So, do you believe in that selling the team? You know how they if the team has a bad record, they want to sell their best players, give away their best players. The rebuild for the future?
Oh, I don't think. I mean,
not the Phillies.
Isn't the rebuild over at this point? Like, it's time. It's time for some results, and you know, like the rebuild's over as far as I'm concerned. You can't, if you're always rebuilding, then you become the Jets. The Jets, as it pains me to say, or the Cleveland Browns. I think we're past that. It's funny you say that, and you guys are the bigger basketball guys than me, and I'll never understand why the 76ers / the fans wanted James Harden here. Like, I just don't get it.
Join the club.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that, because anytime I say something to you, people tell me, well, you're not a basketball fan, so you don't know. Yeah, but I'm a sports fan, and I know enough that you've got a guy who has torn apart 2 other teams he's been on. So why the hell would you want to bring somebody like that into the mix? Like, what's the over-under on seasons until James Harden says, I want out of here too?
Exactly.
See, I think a lot of people got caught up because he scored 36 and he averaged 36 in one season. He's always scoring a lot, but he's on bad teams that's scoring all those points. Those are not great teams. So he's taking all the shots, but now his flaws are being exposed. It's like when he's shooting bad, he don't do anything else. His defense lack off, his assists is down. Everything across the board is bad when he's shooting bad. And then he still dribble the ball too long where the offense don't get in the sync, and then he got to throw up a bullshit shot at the buzzer or something.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. You talk about rebuilding, and I'll ask you guys this as the basketball fan. At what point, and just like we talked about Gabe Klapler, and on the radio you didn't hear a whole lot of this, and again, I don't hear a whole lot of this, and my son and his friends hate when I bring this up and I say to him, you hear trust the process. Well, hasn't the process been a failure because of all those first round picks that the Sixers
all we
collected? You've got one guy to show for it. Yeah. I don't understand how that's a success. and again, my friends who are Sixers fans, they don't want to hear it, but I don't get it. Like, you drafted. And I don't know enough about basketball to know why the whole Ben Simmons things didn't work out. But let's take him out of the equation for this conversation. What about all the other picks? You drafted a guy who never came over from overseas. You drafted a guy who, with the number 1 pick overall, who couldn't shoot. And now he's somewhere in Orlando at the end of the bench. Like,
something happened to him because when we got him, he was an okay shooter, but then he got hurt and they changed up his shooting form, and then he never after that.
From what I understand, he never should have been the number 1 pick in the NBA draft anyway. And that's what the Sixers.
That's what they do now. And they draft on potential instead of what they actually is doing right now. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And they should have never drafted him though.
As we said back in the fall when we talked about football, and I'm not schooled enough to do a whole show on was the process a success or not, but from the outside looking in, I'm pretty sure it wasn't.
I agree with you. It definitely wasn't, because we lost a lot of first round picks and got nothing to show for it except Embiid.
Right, and I mean, the one guy everyone talks about, and my son and his friends, is the guy on the Celtics.
Jason Tatum, yeah.
Yeah.
Passed him up. But that's what Philly teams do anyway when it comes to the draft, across the board. You know what I mean?
Yep. Well, going back to basketball, where you were talking about drafting. The days now is not like how we grew up. See, in college, it was always a sure thing that this guy was definitely going to be an NBA, let's just say all-star, going to be an NBA all-star. See, now is you just drafting on potential, because these guys, they're being drafted, they're like 18, 19 years old, and they only played one season of college basketball.
Right.
So nowadays, you just pretty much have to just close your eyes and just pick a guy. or pick a guy who think that can fit into your system, because you don't know, the guy's 19 years old. You never seen him in any type of situation. That's why if they want to draft these young players, that's why they need to boost up that G League. They need to boost up that G League and more. Because if you draft these guys and they like 18, 19 years old, send them to the G League for a year. And then
I agree. Absolutely. Which I guess leads and which, if we're going to talk about drafts, I'll have to ask you guys about the three first rounders you have coming up at the end of the month.
Go ahead, Phil. Who they going to draft? Who you think they're going to? Not position. You don't have to name the player.
Oh, position.
Yes, position.
I would keep all 3 picks, and I would draft for positions. I would draft a linebacker, a safety, and if I can get one of the top receivers with that first pick as somebody on the board, I would go that way. If he's not there and I have to get something done, it's probably a defensive end, because I got to get that. I got to focus on that defense. You know what I mean?
I agree.
3 picks is a good spot to be in. You know, my team's got 2 in the top 10 and 4 in the top 50. So this is the year we make a difference and try to get back into relevance in the NFL as far as the Jets go.
The wide receiver you drafted last year, when they played against the Eagles, he was fine.
He's going to be special. Moore's going to be good.
What about quarterback?
I think everyone's expecting him to take the next logical step. Now, it's not going to be a Joe Burrow step to the Super Bowl, but it's going to be growth. And, you've got to now go from 3 wins to 8 wins and prove that you belong in this league. And so long as that management is going to put better people around him, he builds with the program, which there's no reason to say why he should. He was very good down the stretch last year. The last 3 or 4 games last year, his touchdown to interception ratio was very good. I think he only threw 2 interceptions in the last 4 or 5 games. So we should be okay with him.
All right, Gary.
So it's a fun time. It's a fun time of the year. I'm so excited about the baseball season starting. It'll be a big weekend next weekend between opening day and the Masters next week. And then for those who care about the NBA playoffs, and I guess no one really cares around here about the NHL playoffs this year.
Well, the Flyers suck. That's the only thing.
Shit. They went on like a 10-game losing streak, then turned right back around and went on like 11-game losing streak.
Yep.
There was a stat out there around the holidays or at sometime in January that, like, between October 1st and February 1st, the Phillies and the Flyers won the same number of games. Not quite to that level, but something crazy like that.
All right, Gary, where can we reach you on social media?
I'm at Gary S1012 on Twitter, and I love interacting with all the fans, about the different games, and I love just shooting it up with you guys. You guys are a whole lot of fun. So anytime you want a third voice, think of me, and hopefully I bring enough to the table to keep you guys and the listeners engaged to come back again.
You're like our baseball expert, so it's good to hear what you got to say about what's going on. That's why I said we can touch back with you like midway through the season, so I can dig in Bryce Harper ass if you're having bad season.
Excellent. The week of the All-Star game where it's quiet, we'll do it again.
Okay.
If you guys let's get out to, if you guys make it out to a game, let me know when you're going to be there, and I'll make arrangements to come see you guys in person.
Oh, I love going to a Phillies game because it's more funner there than watching it on TV.
Absolutely. And I think over the last last season especially, I think you're starting to feel a little bit of life come back to the ballpark where it was back like it was back in the old days of 06, 07, even up to 2012. And between 2012 and 2019 or whatever, it was a morgue there. I used to say to everyone, there was no more buzz in the ballpark, and the buzz is starting to come back to the ballpark, which is a whole lot of fun. It makes for a better place to go. It really does.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll put that on the calendar. I'll meet you guys out there for a ball game, and the first round will be on me.
Well, before I go, I want to give a shout out. I want to give a shout out to the Judgmental Podcast because this is our 100th episode. Asterisk, because it's not really our 100th episode. It's like our 109th or 10th. But on paper, it's our 100th episode because we also do musical episodes, Gary, and it's not counted as it's not counted as this show. So this is our first 100 episode. So cheers to you, Phil, and thank you for being here.
Congratulations, guys, because I know it's not easy to build the audience through a podcast. So the fact that you guys have done 100 episodes and have built the audience, congratulations.
Right. Well, nobody listens to us anyway, so. Well, you can reach us on Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok at PNL Judgmentals, Instagram at the2_judgmentals, or you can email us at pnljudgmentals@gmail.com. Thanks again, Gary.
Thanks a lot, guys. I really enjoyed it. I have a whole lot of fun with you guys. You guys are good fans.
All right, thank you.
We'll talk soon.
All right, we do.
I can tell you're mad at me just by how your face look. You can check the status on my level, not my Facebook. Comments on my photos, that's why I stay on the low. Most of y'all is associates, so I be on my dolo. Hold up, whoa, hold the phone. You think all I do is rap? I can do it on my own. That's why I produce the track.